Good morning. So I am aware the break is after this, so hold on if you can. So I'm sitting in for Anna Sampson today, who's going to be hosting this session. Unfortunately, she's got norovirus, but I'm sure we're going to have a great chat regardless. So I'm really happy to be joined by James Burton-Lee, Customer Acquisition Director at David Lloyd Leisure, and Christian Taylor, who's Head of Planning at Kite Factory. Welcome both.
Thanks, Ella.
So we're going to be talking about David Lloyd Leisure's journey over the last 5 years, and then the hot topic of media measurement and how that comes into it. So I guess just to kick things off, 5 years sounds like a very long time in terms of media strategy and planning. How do you think, can you walk us through it and how it's benefited the business?
Yeah, shall I start?
Yeah, you go for it.
So just maybe a bit of context about our business. So we actually turned 40 last year. So 40 years ago, we opened our first club in a place near Heathrow called Heston. And that club was largely kind of a tennis centre. The goal was to create indoor tennis centres in the UK. Over that last 40-year period, our product's now evolved and we're now a much broader fitness and wellness product with spas and swimming pools, gyms, as well as tennis. So the product's evolved over the period of time, but I think the acceleration has been largely in the kind of the last 5 to 10 years as our ownership structure changed and there was a big push towards it. And that kind of lines up, I guess, with this 5-year timeline. So we I guess probably 2017, I think we launched our first TV ad, and that was driven by our brand insight tracking telling us that we need to grow brand awareness in the market. And it was probably our first foray into that kind of media before we worked with these guys. And it was a good campaign that kind of led us forward in that way. But at that point, our measurement was probably quite, it was quite linear, let's say, as a way to describe it. So actually, kind of fairly quickly after that, we then started working with the Kite Factory and recognised the value and the need to start measuring our media in a more effective way, predominantly to look at the roles of different media channels and how they can contribute towards the kind of end goal. What that's then done for us is meant that we've got much more rigour and robustness around the sort of short-term output of our media investments. There's obviously a long-term brand building element to it as well, but critically I find within the business there's often a need to show that short-term ROI on what we're doing. So this has helped us because we can then show the return on what we're doing. We can build confidence over through our media investments over the years. And from that period, probably from 2017 onwards up until around the kind of coronavirus and lockdowns, we'd done quite a lot of work internally with these guys to build a really strong model. That model enabled us to engage our senior team and particularly our CFO and our CEO onto the value of what we bring and see us as an investment in the business as opposed to another cost. That then meant, as we came out of coronavirus, like many businesses in the sector, we were completely shut, no revenue. We had a big task to regain members. We had a real kind of P&L challenge as we literally had no income for that entire period of time. And because of this, not just because of the model on its own, but because of the rigor we'd built up, enabled us to go to the CFO and say, right, to regain our business, we need to invest heavily in media, heavily in advertising, outstrip the market, win share of voice, and then use that as an opportunity to build the brand from there, which kind of gave us the brief that we sort of shared with these guys, say, right, here's the challenge, guys. We've got a big hole to fill, and we know, because of what we've been doing through the model, that actually this is effective. How do we use it to try and kind of beat the market and regain share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Working back from where we are today, at that point, coming out of lockdown, we had the confidence to set a media strategy, and I'm a media strategist, a planner. I'm not an analyst, but what I had was the tools and the confidence to say, actually, we should invest in above-the-line media. It should continue throughout the summer. So I think we opened in April 2021, and what that meant was from April through the summer, we had 100% share of voice in TV, which meant that it kind of indicates our competitors didn't have that confidence and that intelligence that we'd built up over this 5-year journey of measurement. So the great outcome of that was that we regained all of our customer count, and actually I think exceeded it by July of that year, which was way ahead of our sort of targets and plans for the business. So I think bringing that to where we are today, this 5-year journey has brought us to a position where we've got the tools, the technology, the talent in place that means that we've got the confidence to make strategic business decisions. And we've kind of got this flow between us as an organisation, as a team, to actually be able to make quick decisions and actually answer big questions very quickly as well. I mean, just last week we were discussing what would happen if we shifted one of our major campaign tentpoles into another period of the year. We've got you asked us that 5 or 6 years ago, we might have shifted a few things around and came up with an idea, but now we've got such confidence in the business and the marketing and advertising that we do around it as well.
So that kind of solid evidence to back up those decisions.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of, we all know the marketing best practice and the kind of media best practice you should follow. I think what this has done is given us the kind of some evidence. My CFO chats a lot about evidence-based fact. How can you don't talk me through a case study, talk me through the example that I can bring to life. And actually, this helps us in those conversations. And I believe we've moved the conversation on quite a lot. The conversations I'm having now with that audience are much more about how do we use media and advertising as one strand to grow the business, as opposed to should we spend this money on that channel or that channel. It's really elevated the chat, the kind of level of discussion.
And yeah, there's a kind of, you talk about the CFO and kind of making those cases to them. And obviously on the agency side as well, there's this relationship you guys have mentioned. How do you kind of like work together and collaborate on that measurement to kind of make sure that everyone's on the same wavelength as you kind of are like, this is where we're going? What if, have there been some skeptics along the way?
Yeah, I think I'll start with this one. I think it's what we've come to talk to you today is about that journey and why it took so long to build trust. And I think it was great hearing from Adidas. I think Gordon, if some of you might have heard that, he was talking about the sort of the need for econometrics and that sort of thing. But actually, there's a journey to getting that into place and ensuring you've got the trust in the organisation around it. And I think it started back in 2017. James mentioned they'd done a TV campaign, but we needed to rebuild that trust. So essentially, we worked together to put new measurement techniques in place. It started with linear, but then the real game changer was econometrics or marketing mix modelling. And essentially, that really helped us unlock new media strategies. And I'm not going to be controversial here, slightly controversial, and you can come and sort of discuss with me later. But I believe the benefit of the agency controlling that and having the ownership of the measurement, in this case econometrics and marketing mix modelling, has meant that we've been able to step change our media investments and make decisions collectively as a business. However, there is an element of building trust through transparency, and I think that's where we've worked very closely with the guys, James and his team, to create transparency in the model. I know we sort of worked closely with your data scientists, gave them the opportunity to unpick the model, to stress test it as well, which then meant that you could speak to your sort of senior team as well with confidence. Yeah,
it's interesting that we have that debate whether we should use an in-house company, an agency to measure their own media, or should it be a third party? And actually, where I used to work, we used a third party. I agree with you, the benefits of doing it in-house I think is better because it just means you're more responsive and you're closer to the business. But you get the skeptics, and I think we did, I don't know, I don't want to count them, I probably maybe not on one hand, the amount of times you presented the same presentation back to the same audience about what we're doing and how this works, and there's a lot of, particularly in a company where you've got people who've been there for quite a while, a lot of intuitive knowledge. I know this works because I've been here forever. And actually, when we're challenging that in a quite complex model that people don't really understand, it's quite hard to sell. So yeah, I mean, that was the game changer. We got our data science team, spent time with your data science team. I sat in presentations that kind of went slightly over my head a little bit, but I was like, you guys know what you're talking about, and you're all smiling. But they kind of came away from it with a real clear understanding of how it works, what it's trying to achieve, and then it just gave us the confidence to say, well, yes, I appreciate what you're saying, but Max has been through it, and we all trust Max as our kind of, data scientist in the business, and it helped a lot. Yeah, and then there's a period of test and learn, right? So we were able to say something that we believed in and proved it, and we did that iteratively over a sort of 5-year period as well. Yeah, I think that's probably a key point is go back to it. I mean, like with all these models, they are only as good as the output. So we always go back and look at, right, if we've forecast 6 months of activity, how have we done against that? Where are we up or down? We use that quite a lot and then bring that narrative back to the business. So actually we say, well, we planned this, we ended up here, this is why we think it is. We're very open about the fact that it's a forecast tool, and therefore it's never going to be 100% accurate. If you look at the last 2 to 3 years of what's gone on in the market, that you can't build that in an econometric model, but it's enabling us to have a much more kind of data-led, insight-led conversation, and I think that builds the confidence, and I think it's made us work closer together.
Definitely.
Would you guys say, you mentioned at the beginning, James, a bit about the short-term driving, those kind of conversations, but also you can't neglect the long-term brand building story. So could you tell me more about those short and long-term impacts, and then maybe a bit about a piece of data that surprised you both from what kind of came out of this collaboration?
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. I was having this conversation this morning in one of the earlier sessions around that sort of long v short brand build versus kind of performance, and I think we probably know instinctively, and again, what this has helped us measure is there is a short-term response from the kind of more classic brand building TV campaigns. So obviously it's far more efficient to do it through search, but there's a limit to search, as we know, because it's all demand harvesting as opposed to generating. What I think this has got to is, so we knew what we needed to do. We had an understanding of, as we all do as marketing people, how you build a brand and what it takes to do it. The ability to measure the short-term output as well as project the impact to the business of the long-term growth has been the kind of key unlocker for me, really. So I all know if I go and want to try and drive sales through search, it's much cheaper than it is on TV, but actually TV's doing a different role and it's still driving a profitable sale in the short term. And that ability to kind of marry the two and see the short-term benefits from the long-term activity and run them kind of concurrently has sort of been the key point, I think, which has enabled us to move forward. We've got the ability to keep growing in the short term in year, but now invest in the long term, knowing that we can pay for it in the short term. That makes sense? So the kind of ROI stacks up.
So it's kind of like a circle, I guess.
Exactly, that kind of virtuous circle. And I think if I look at what I did in previous roles and how we approach this, it'll be, well, we know we need to buy media at this rate and we need to have a compelling campaign and all these things we have to do. And here's the good examples of brands who've done it. But it's going to cost X million pounds, and I know in the next 3 years here's a return. So it's always been quite theory-led, and this is it still is theory-led the long term, but just this short-term output just helps us say, well, actually we'll get this in year one, and here's what we're getting to year 2 and 3.
Yeah, we part of that process, as we sort of went through, we kind of said back to the business, right, we need to unlock future growth. And so we used our measurement to create a model, and we worked with James and the team. It was essentially a business model which actually helps us model the short term. Okay, great, we can expect this, it's not going to be as efficient. However, we also believe that there's going to be some impacts on the conversion metrics. So at David Lloyd, it's sort of an inquiry to sale mechanism. So we forecasted an increase in conversion rate. For every percentage point increase in brand consideration, we forecasted an increase in conversion rate from inquiry to sale. Now, we did this in 2019 and then went straight into lockdown.
We had 6 great weeks. We had 6 great weeks.
We had 6 great weeks. Our biggest Q1 ever.
From a pandemic to a cost of living crisis.
But since then, we have proven the link between brand consideration. Whether there's a link, there's a correlation. There's a sort of relationship between brand consideration and this conversion rate from inquiry to sale. And I think that's one of the really interesting insights that I've taken from the long and short stuff in the process that we've gone through the years.
And as we come to the end of this session, I was just wondering, what is the biggest lesson you both have learned from this process to share with this audience? What can they take away as like one little nugget that they can go back to with?
I'm going to start from a sort of media agency perspective. If you take away anything, it's the 3 things. It's the collaboration it takes to get there between client and agency, ownership of the measurement model. In our case, we firmly believe that it helps for the agency to own it. And then finally, it's actually working with the partners. Someone like us at the Kite Factory, we believe actually independence helps us act on that as well, because we don't have any ties into media activation. We can be media neutral and act on those insights that we see instantly.
I'll probably say, I've touched on that bit about how we engage the team, but I think the key bit is this has given us an ability to be more measured in what we do. Marketing is often seen as a bit of a, kind of a closed box or dark arts, and we spend loads of money and we get an output. This ability to link what we're doing to output, even if it's only the short-term side of it, has enabled us to kind of almost put that part of the conversation away and elevate the discussions we're having. We're leading the business in what we're trying to achieve as a marketing team, spending less time just debating what channels we should go on or the ROI, just because we've kind of built that confidence in what we've done. So I think that's the key one. We can use this to move what we're doing. As a marketing team, we should be driving the business forward. Advertising and media is one part of what we do. Actually, if we do it well, we're affecting product and we're affecting price and we're affecting the customer experience. And taking this off the table, or whatever you want to call it, having the knowledge here enables us to elevate the conversation to those spaces.
Thank you so much, both. I think now is time for our coffee break. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nick. Well done.
Thanks, Ella. Does anyone have any questions?